additive free? What does additive free even mean? Hi, I'm Tim from Elma Wine and Liquor. I'm here today to talk to you about additive free tequila. If you're a tequila drinker, or if you've just getting into the world of tequila, or if you've been around it for a while, you may have heard this buzzword called additive free. Tequila gaining popularity, especially sipping tequilas, just nice, smooth products. And there's a growing awareness that not all tequilas are additive free. So let's back up a step and describe what is an additive. What does that even mean? So an additive is anything that gets added into a finished product. It's in all of our foods, especially in the US. There are additives in almost everything we eat, drink. With tequila, by law, producers are allowed to use the word tequila on the label and still have up to 1% by volume additives added in. This is regulated by the Tequila Regulatory Council, which is a nonprofit that kind of helps oversee all the tequila producers and make sure that they're following the rules and the laws so that there is a consistent, good quality products out there. Now, putting additives in doesn't mean that it's a bad product. It doesn't mean that it's not a true tequila, because as I just said, by law, they are allowed to add that 1% of additives into the product. It just means that there's something added in. It's not its truest expression of the product. And that's why you're hearing more and more people talk about this buzzword additive-free tequila. People want to drink something that is in that true expression, that is not covered up or adulterated in any way. So what are additives that are added in tequila? There's basically 4 different types that are being added in. A glycerin, which is a kind of a thickening agent, helps create a more fuller bodied mouthfeel, richer, it gives you a perception of a rich, product, nice quality, that just kind of, coats your mouth and helps those flavors linger there. Again, not necessarily a horrible thing, but just to be aware that that's one of the additives. Another additive is oak flavoring. So with reposados and añejo tequilas, they are aged in oak barrels for different periods of time. You can see my past videos on that for more information. But with that oak aging comes that natural coloring to the tequila, and the flavors and aromas. So the flavors that oak imparts on the tequila add some vanilla. It might have some residual bourbon or whiskey in the barrel that helps give it a different flavor as well. So that oak flavoring is a big additive that's added into tequila. All right, the third additive that some tequila producers put in is caramel coloring. Again, that when you're aging tequila in oak barrels, it naturally picks up that color of the oak and the leftover whiskey. Some producers want to give you a perception of a longer aging period, so they add in caramel coloring to give that darker hue to it. Even if they already get a nice hue, some of them just want it to be a little bit darker, so they put in a little more caramel coloring. Something that consumers like to see, so they figure why not do it? They're allowed to add up to 1%, so they do it. And it doesn't necessarily indicate a bad product, although it can. It just means that they're adding caramel coloring. And the fourth ingredient, or fourth additive that they're allowed to put in is called Agave, which is really just any type of sweetener. This could be natural sugars, this could be artificial sweeteners, aspartame, things like that. Agave syrups, just pure cane sugar, whatever kind of sweetening agent they want to put in, that is allowed. Again, up to 1%. And you'd be surprised that there are some very big, well-known, well-respected tequilas that are very well-liked that are putting in quite a bit of sweetener into them because it adds that sweetness level. And so let's talk about why these companies are putting the additives in. Like I just mentioned, sweetness, especially American consumers, we like sweet stuff. A lot of people don't necessarily admit it, but that sugar sweetness is addictive. It also helps cover up the harshness of the alcohol, makes it go down smoother, which is what a lot of people like when they're drinking products like this. So the sweeteners is because just people like it. It covers up the alcohol, makes it go down easier. the caramel coloring, that perception of, longer aging, which could mean better quality. Those oak notes, some people really enjoy the aromas on those. There's a lot of wine companies that add in that artificial oak additives as well, because they don't have the time or the money to age for a long period of time in oak barrels, or don't have access to fresher barrels, which impart more oak quicker. Tequila is generally using used oak barrels. They get a lot of them from the bourbon industry, which can only use their barrels once. So the oak imparted isn't as strong as a fresh oak barrel. Another reason, agave takes about 7 years to fully mature. One plant, 7 years. Well, these are big plants. They're not crammed into a micro farm. They're spread out over acres and acres. 7 years for one plant to produce one quinoa, which is a long time. Some producers, because of cash flow, because of just time and money, whatever, harvest a little bit young. So those younger agaves, not fully ripe, don't produce as much sugar content to enhance the fermentation. Might leave it a little harsher, might leave it a little more astringent. Other companies don't use the traditional baking process, where it slow roasts for up to 48 hours, which slowly, naturally brings out all of those rich sugars from the agave. They use more mechanical processes, which again can leave the product feeling a little bit more astringent, tasting a little more astringent, and then the additives help cover up those things. And another reason that companies will add additives in is to produce a more consistent product. Consumers like to know what they're getting. When you walk into a Starbucks or McDonald's, anywhere in the United States, chances are you're going to find almost the exact same setup, menu, process, that kind of thing. The Big Mac is going to taste the same in California as it is in Virginia, and that's what consumers like. So when a brand puts a product on a shelf, they sometimes want it to taste the same everywhere it is and every time a consumer buys it. So sometimes those additives help make that product a little bit more consistent. So what is additive-free tequila? Additive-free, it's pretty much what it sounds like. There are no additives in the tequila. Tequila is made from Blue Weber agave, yeast, and water. That's it. And a lot of times that yeast is even natural in the air yeast. Some of the producers, Arete, when I was down there last year, they just have big open fermenting tanks. That's it. They process their agave, they shred it up, they take that sugar, agave water, throw it in the big tanks, the natural yeast hits it, ferments, and then they go and distill that out. So no additives means additive free. Very simple process. You're not always going to get a super consistent product with that either. Every batch might be a little bit different. If you grab a bottle of Cascanes, from 1 month to 6 months later, you might find it a little bit different in taste. The oak aging also has something to do with that too, because a lot of these producers are very small batch, so they don't have the thousands of barrels to dump in together to make that consistent product like a lot of whiskey producers do. So a little bit less consistent with additive free, but not always necessarily. Does additive free mean better? Not necessarily. You might like an additive added because, like I mentioned, that sweetness or that oak flavor or nose to it, or just the appearance of the darker color from caramel coloring or the glycerin adding that weight to it. Doesn't necessarily mean that the product is better. It just means that they're showcasing their natural, real product. They might have to put a little bit more time and energy and care into it so that they don't have to put the additives in. So from that perspective, you could say that it's a little bit better. And lastly, how do we know whether a tequila is additive free? Again, by law, they are allowed to add 1% additives, and they don't have to tell us. So it's not going to be on most labels. There are some producers that feature it on their website. So that's one place you can go. Go to the websites, search around, look for it. They might say it right up front, and they might not. They might like to reserve the right to add something in if it's a bad batch, or, maybe not a bad batch, it's not the right word, but something's a little bit off, which they want something a little bit more consistent than it was. It was maybe too far off in flavor. So even though they might be mostly additive free, they might still reserve the right to put some additives in if they need to. So they might not publicly say we're additive free. There are some other websites out there, Tequila Matchmaker, Sip Tequila, that list to the best of their ability tequilas that they're aware of that are additive free. But it's not always a perfect science, and things might change as they go. You can look up the NOM as well. There's always, if it's a real tequila, there's an NOM, NOM, and a number, which says which tequila, where it's produced. So some brands are just co-packed or produced at other distilleries. Some distilleries have their own NOM, but you can look that up, Google that, look up Tequila Matchmaker. Sometimes they'll share information about whether the distillery is completely additive free or not. The other way is just to smell, taste. Just because you smell oak doesn't mean that there's additives. It can actually be the natural oak. Just because there's coloring on it doesn't mean that they added caramel coloring. It can and should be real natural oak. But, sometimes you can pick up on that. Same thing with the sweetness. Sometimes you taste in, food products or other drinks that chemical artificial sweetener, or just something's overly sweet. You might know right off the bat. Another way that I test is you take a little tequila and pour it in your hands, rub it around, let it start drying. And as that happens, if there is sweetener in it, your hands will feel a little bit sticky. This one, not sticky, so no additives, at least on that front. I suppose there could still be caramel coloring in it, but probably not on that one since it's clear. Things like that won't show up in this test, but this will tell you whether or not there's any sweetness added to it. So that's it for our video today. We went over what are additives, what tequila is allowed to put in their tequila, and what additive-free tequila really is, and how you can hopefully figure out which ones are additive-free. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, like it, leave us a comment. Any favorite tequilas you have, whether additive-free or not, we'd love to hear about them. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Cheers.